Judges chapter 16 today, and I think that's the first time I ever have done a video on just one chapter, but this is just finishing off the story of Samson that we did in the last video, which is too much to fit in one. It gets weirder than it already did, and it's very bitter. It's almost like someone found this old manuscript that was not intact and thought, stuff it, we'll just bung it into the Bible anyway, and it's just because it's just such random stuff. It jumps around, and I can't really see that it makes a great deal of sense. Anyway, Samson has done all the gubbins in the last video, and now he's on his way to somewhere called Gaza. He decides to stop and spend the night with a prostitute, as you do, and somehow the people of the town around there find out that he's there, and then they all camp out at the city gate, and they've decided in the morning at dawn they're going to jump him and kill him. It's not clear whether Samson knows this is what's going to happen, but either way, he gets up in the middle of the night and he goes to the city gate, and then he gets the doors from the city gate, so presumably these are going to be massive doors, tears them off because he's super strong, and then decides to put them on his shoulders and then go for a weird walk up a big hill near Hebron. I assume Gaza is near Hebron, so that's perhaps less weird. But taking doors for a walk, and there's nothing more said, so it's not... All these people were there to kill him, we don't know how many, but he turned up at the doors, pulled them off. Maybe they just went, he's really strong, and disperse. I guess that might make some sense, but it's not stated. All a bit odd. The next paragraph is the Bible saying, sometime later, as in we've moved on from there, Samson falls in love with some lady called Delilah, who sounds like she's a Philistine again. The pattern then repeats of the Philistine men go to her and say, what is the secret of his strength? We want to find this out. But it does seem that Samson is learning because he gives her a fake answer to the question. He does this 3 times, various versions of things he could be tied up with that will stop him from having his strength. And each time Delilah binds him, however he said, gets a load of Philistine men to be in the room, and then goes, quick, Samson, wake up, the Philistines are here to capture you. And then not much more is said, but it sounds like he breaks his binds and then presumably deals with the Philistines, and then she asks him the question again next time and he tells her another different answer, seemingly not thinking, hang on, I told her this, then I wake up and I'm tied up with the thing I said, and the room's full of blokes who want to kill me. It's a bit weird. So I sort of think he was sort of learning by giving a fake answer, but also he might be a little bit thick. It's difficult to tell. This happens twice more anyway, so she ties him both times like this. Both times he wakes up, sounds like he finds Philistine men in his room and has to deal with those. Again, no account of him actually dealing with those. But doesn't seem to compute that maybe this suggests there's something wrong with his girlfriend. At this point, there's a hilarious sentence in the Bible which just doesn't seem to fit at all, but it says of Delilah that with such nagging, she prodded him day after day until he was sick to death of it. I was somehow amused that nagging is in the Bible. It sounds almost like a modern sentence though, doesn't it? I guess it could be a translation thing. But yeah, he's woken up 3 times with blokes in his room, and then she nags enough and he's like, oh, I'll just tell her the truth. So it's all about the hair, as it said in the previous video, that a razor was never to touch his hair. The source of his strength apparently has 7 braids, and he says to Delilah that if these are cut off, his strength goes and he becomes like a normal man. Predictably, he then goes to sleep. She chops off his hair. The Philistines are there. She goes, oh, Samson, wake up. The Philistines are here, and he has to deal with them, but he can't because he's now actually lost his strength. So they gouge out his eyes, drag him off to prison, and then he's forced to work on grinding corn. I mean, obviously that sucks, but you almost go, what did he expect? I mean, how much more evidence did you need that this lady was kind of some sort of problem? So I guess there's no accounting for things people bring on themselves. Maybe that's part of the moral of the story. Don't know. Anyway, the Philistines ascribed this great success to the some sort of blessing from their god called Dagon. It made me wonder, actually, that's an interesting thing, isn't it? People are going to ascribe meaning to coincidence. And people can do that sort of thing. For example, at the minute, I'm having a ridiculous run of really bad luck on mechanical things. It's one thing after another, a string of coincidences you think you couldn't make it up. And if I was in a society that believed in Baal, for example, would people be saying, yes, you're being punished by Baal because you haven't done what you're supposed to do and all the rest of it? And then when positive things happen, it's always a wonderful coincidence, and you can ascribe that meaning to some sort of whatever your deity is. If you have a big enough group of people, I mean, every day there's going to be some sort of coincidence that someone's going to be subjected to, whether positive or negative. I guess that's gets to some of the nub for me in terms of where the scepticism comes from, in that people like to believe, or it's probably not true, is it? Some people might like to believe that there's some meaning behind it all. And I'm suspicious of over-reading into that, the idea that, this happened, that's probably because of this. It's not meant to sound as sceptical as that perhaps does, but it's I guess it's a slightly subconscious discomfort with it. But I just wonder if that's where a lot of the old god stuff came from, in terms of the fake made-up gods. Don't know. Moving on from there anyway, sometime after this, because it's noted that Samson's hair is beginning to grow back, the Philistines have some sort of party. They go to a big temple, and there's all of the elders of the Philistine society there, apparently. There's literally thousands of people, 3,000 people noted as being on the roof. And for some reason, Samson is brought out to perform. I don't know what he's there to perform. I mean, it's a blind guy who's been in prison, and it's like he doesn't have his strength, so it's not like he's doing any clever stuff or anything. But yes, they get him out to perform, and then it sounds like mid-performance he's saying to his person who's guiding him around, can you lean me on one of the pillars of the temple because I need to rest? He then prays to God for one last bout of strength, which, do something, but he specifies that the reason he wants the strength is that he can take vengeance for his eyes. And it seems that God grants this and gives him one last big bout of strength. Doesn't sit very well that the pledge is, I want this for vengeance, because that's, I don't know, I guess one man's vengeance is a God's justice, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, so he's between two pillars that are holding up the roof of this temple. He's got one hand on one on the other, pushes apart, whole thing collapses. It doesn't say how many people are killed, but I mean there were 3,000 people on the roof, and he dies in the process as well. So it says he kills more people in that instant than he did whilst he was alive. And bear in mind, he killed 1,000 people with a donkey jawbone. This is obviously quite a lot of people who've died in this temple collapse. Otherwise, it notes that he led for 20 years, but it doesn't sound like he particularly led, or he not led particularly well. I mean, all he seemed to do was escalate a big old scrap, which angered the Israelites to the point they were willing to turn him into they did turn him into the Philistines, didn't they? And then he just made a bit of a mess, got put in prison, and then killed a couple of thousand people by knocking down a temple. It's not the textbook definition of a wonderful leader with 20 years to show for your reign, is it? It's very odd. And as I say, there are massive bits of detail missing from the picture. And it's just a very weird story. I mean, they're all weird stories, aren't they? But this is a particularly weird story. It feels somewhat out of character with the rest. I don't know what the moral of the story would be. It doesn't sound literal, I guess. I mean, if God exists, he could give that strength. But to what end? I mean, it's not like he's led an army like some of the previous ones and led Israel out of oppression. He's just had a series of scuffles and then killed a load of people in a temple. Don't know. Weird and slightly unsatisfying, that one. Don't know what to do with it. But that's the end of the story of Samson anyway, so we'll move on and see what's next.